SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stone Go, Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkados, Mvskoke Radio, Mabo Hedgedawetskis. Welcome to our program this week. We're getting 2020 off to a fun start, I believe. And we're going to throw a couple of things at you that are relevant. And then one of them we kind of dread every year, but we have to deal with storm season coming up. We've already had reports of tornadoes in other parts of the near country and things like that. So we'll worry about that as it goes. But in order to be prepared for it, we're going to talk with Amy King, who is the office manager at the Mvskoke Creek Nation Storm Shelter Program. Good morning, Amy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's try that one again. Turn your mic on.
Oh, no.
I got it.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. Nothing like live radio to have lots of fun. Now, first of all, have you been paying any attention to what some of the forecasters have been saying about the storm season coming up? Any ideas or anything you want to kind of help us with?
Well, typically, tornado season or just bad weather in general can run through April, May, June, but it can come as early as even January and go as late as September. So as far as weather currently, we live in Oklahoma, so it's very unpredictable. So we always, I guess, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst when it comes to Oklahoma storms.
Okay, well, so far we've had some kind of weird weather for the past couple of years now.
We have.
Seems like the storm belt has been moving north. And,
yes.
Our neighbors in Kansas have been getting hammered, while Oklahomans have had to deal with some, but not quite to the extent that we had some of the past years.
Right.
Now, after sticking my neck out like that, I'll probably turn around and we'll get hammered again.
Right.
But it's always something that we've an annual event, I guess, that we sometimes dread and don't look forward to.
Sure.
Most of our rural homes, you can see, have old storm shelters and things like that may or may not be up to par right now.
They do. Mm-hmm.
And I think the latest trend in the past couple of years have been safe rooms.
Yes.
A big metal capsule that you kind of hide in. Now, in order to serve our citizens, the program now, which is in its, third year?
It is. We're in our third season.
Okay, has been set up to help people who are in the most need to get a storm shelter.
Correct.
A place to hide.
Right.
Okay, well, why don't we, when we start there, and you talk to me about the program itself. Give me a capsule there, and the kind of services that you deliver.
Well, first off, a lot of our applicants are under the impression that it's a first come, first serve application process, and it is not. We work off of a point preference system. So with that, for instance, 65 and older, you're given a point. 75 and older, you're given another point. Anyone that has been diagnosed with any type of ambulatory disability, meaning they are with a cane, wheelchair bound, things along that nature. Of course, that's another point. Let's see. We also, anyone that takes care of a citizen, that is disabled, they do have to be Creek, and the applicant has to be Creek as well. They'll receive a point. If you're in a rural area, that's another point. Mobile home. veteran, you receive a point. So everyone's encouraged to apply if they are a citizen living within our jurisdiction. And that's not to say that the younger crowd is not able to receive a storm shelter, because they could be a veteran, being a caregiver of another citizen that is disabled. So it just kind of depends on what their circumstances and how we award each year.
You add up those points, and those are counted, and those folks with the most number of points then
Correct.
Go to the top of the list.
Yes.
As the time element is important, how long does that process usually take?
Well, it's very important that citizens know we only take applications between the month of August. So beginning August 1 through August 31st, we take applications. So each year, if you're not awarded, you must reapply, meaning you come back in, you get a new updated application, and you must turn in updated information as well with your application. So we will not send your documents back out to you if you were not awarded. You must reapply and submit all new updated documents.
All right, now let's take a second here and recap what you just shared with us. Now, it's not a free storm shelter come one, come all kind of thing.
Right.
You have to qualify.
You do.
And you just lined out the points that are required for someone to qualify for a shelter. Now, as the process continues and someone has qualified and is on your schedule, what actually happens? Now, first of all, they have to own the property, do they?
They must own their property. If they're in a mobile home, they must own that as well. Their name must be on the deed. And that's for the property as well. Their name must be on the property. If they're rural, it's not just their spouse. They must be on it as well.
So we're talking about if you're a renter or on or leased land, that might go against you because you don't own the property, and what you're doing is improving this for the landlord.
Yeah, absolutely. If they are part of Mvskoke Creek Nation Housing, so if they have a home through our housing department and they're currently making payments, they will need to go and get a document from them so we can show that they're in the process of purchasing their home, and they can apply based off of that.
Have you had many applications that were rejected because they just somebody was faking it or something?
Well, I can't really say that I've came across too many that have
weird question, I know.
No, not really, but I personally have not had that happen. So
okay. Then folks are playing by the rules.
Right.
Now, it has been the growing trend in past years, besides the in-ground shelters. I presume that's like you dig a hole and drop this. Is it preformed, or do you pour cement with?
Well, as far as the below ground, they are pre-installed. And they basically just make their dig, and then they'll put them and assemble them as they go in. It's become more popular, of course, that the above ground is what everyone's kind of going towards.
You were going to that, what they call safe rooms?
Yes, safe rooms. They're not big, They say smaller shelters are really what can withstand, the biggest storms, which, they've all been tested. But the smaller shelters, you'd be surprised how many you can fit standing up in an above ground shelter. Now again, if they do apply and they are wanting the above ground, then they must have some type of disability.
Right. So they wheelchair bound.
Sure.
You can't go down the stairs in the below ground thing.
Right.
Now, does this above ground segment include those shelters like in somebody's garage and they have a sliding door that closes?
For the below ground?
Yeah.
No, those are still outside.
Okay.
Now, for the above ground, you can put in your garage. You can even put in your home.
Right.
Under a carport. I mean, they can put them just about anywhere anymore.
Well, yeah, I've been kind of looking at my home in the last couple of years, and it's kind of full of junk right now. So we haven't done anything, but there is room. I kind of got some measurements, and there is a slab there where we could clear it out and install one of these things.
Well, you need to come apply.
Yeah, well, I get the over 65 part, but the other ones I'm not quite sure. But
not there yet?
Well, I don't know if there's an income requirement I might qualify.
Well, it's not income based.
Okay,
so anyone and everyone that's a native living within our jurisdiction, a Creek citizen, can apply.
Now, your emphasis, of course, is to serve rural. I can't even. I'm so dry.
That's a tricky
folks
one.
out in the sticks. How's that? And not necessarily someone who may live like in Okmulgee or Glenpool or
right. Now, if they live in a smaller city, let's say Morris, any place under 3,000, we consider that rural. So if you're living in, which I don't necessarily know what parts of Okemah and Wetumpka, places like that are considered under the population of 3,000, they'll get a point for being in a rural area.
Mm-hmm. The program has got to be growing in popularity, shall we call it, in the last couple of years, word of mouth sort of thing. Said, yeah, I applied to this program. They came out and they built this thing for me. I qualified under their requirements and things like that. Do you have any numbers on how this thing has progressed?
Well, each season we typically award between 25 to 35 citizens yearly. The first year was actually the largest year. There was over 500 applicants that applied. This year, we had right around, I'd say 450, somewhere around there. So this year it kind of scaled back a little bit. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do a whole lot of advertising. So this next season, we hope to really get our advertisement out so that everyone knows, come and apply.
Mm-hmm.
We're ready to go.
Well, let me know if somebody says I heard it on Mvskoke Radio.
I sure will. I will certainly do that.
Okay, so the numbers have been growing. The kinds of things that you can do now, let's run over that again. First of all, you can do an in-ground where you go in and dig the traditional hole and then fill it with this concrete shelter.
Yes.
And then you can do the stand-up shelters like in somebody's garage, and they have to be on a concrete slab. Is that?
They do, and that's a good point. If they do not have the infrastructure that we need in order to install the above-ground shelter, and they do not have the income or something set aside to put that slab in to pay for it, they are eligible to come in and. That is first come first serve. It's a income based slab app, and they're able to come in, turn in their documents just as quickly as they can because funding is limited on that, and then we would come in and from the tribe and install the app, pour the slab so that the above ground shelter can be installed.
Right.
Excuse me.
Now. I don't know. Can we talk dimensions here for a second?
We can. I'll do the best I can on that.
All right. Now I looked at let's use my garage for an example. That would be the appropriate place. The rest of it is cracked driveway and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But there is a space near my water heater that is, so let's call it 7 by 6, something like that. Would that be
that would be just
space?
Fine. Mm-hmm. Yep, okay. Our smaller standard shelter is it's a 4x4, and then we go up from there to a 4x6. So again, you'd be surprised how many you can fit into a 4x4.
Any estimates there?
That's right, about 4 to 6 people. And now that's standing up. That's not bring your dog and your which I would have to bring my dog
Yeah,
with me.
yeah. I don't even want to go there. I know people say,
Right.
I'm bringing my dog.
That's right. But you'd be surprised how many you can fit into a 4x4 shelter. Now, if there's an applicant that comes in and they're awarded and they are wheelchair bound, it kind of depends on, what size wheelchair they have. If it's not just your standard wheelchair and they come with just a little bit, a bigger size, I guess you could say, more mobility. If they have to have a scooter, then we would award the 4x6, so that can accommodate them just a little bit better. So it's not a preference. You can't come in and say, I'd like the 4x6
Right.
as opposed to the 4x4.
So you make your decisions based on the information they give you then.
Right, and that would have to come from their medical doctor, stating specifically the needs that they have as far as their wheelchair, their scooter, things like that. And then our committee would award based off of that if they needed the 4x6.
Right. Is there any restrictions on? Well, let me put it this: who would you reject, so to speak, or you just look at the numbers? Would there be something that automatically would not be eligible?
Well, we do go off of the point preference system. If someone comes in and they apply, they may have 0 points. They may live in Tulsa, right in town, young, perfectly capable of getting to a shelter, in time. Then that would be 0. If they aren't a veteran, they're not disabled, they're not taking care of anyone that is a disabled creek. Again, they're not rural, they're just in, the city of Tulsa, even Okmulgee. Then that would be 0, and they'd be at the bottom of our pool there.
The process now, always, you've got to fill out an application, et cetera, et cetera. What other documents or information must an applicant supply in order to be considered?
Well, of course, we'll need an updated tribal card. A lot of people ask if they can submit their CDIB card. We'll need their citizenship card, and it has to be updated. A lot of people don't know that those expire.
I just found out
Right.
last week when somebody asked me and I flipped out and said, this is expired
Yeah,
2 years ago.
mine's currently expired. Speaking
Yeah,
of
so
that.
I felt like a complete idiot, but went over to citizenship and I got a new one.
Right, very easy for them to take care of you over there. We'll need the copy of their deed, again, being in the applicant's name. If they're in a mobile home, they must provide the title or registration of the mobile home. And then we'll also need a updated utility bill in their name, water bill, gas bill, electric, with their primary address. And with that, we only award based on the primary residence. So if they have a home and then plus they have a few rent homes, we're not able to award based off of that. It would have to be their primary residence.
So you couldn't get 2 or 3 shelters?
Right, one per lifetime.
Right, for your investments there.
Yes.
Now, that seems to have answered, I guess, the top questions that I had. Now, is there something else we haven't hit on that is important to be brought out?
Not that I can think of. We can kind of, anyone that has questions, they're welcome to call the office, 918-549-2555. And I'd be happy to go over our application in depth just a little bit more if they have questions. Again, we only take applications between the month of August. So August 1st through the 31st. If they were not awarded this season, they must reapply again. So that's just some important information to kind of remember. And you must live within our jurisdiction. So that's...
Now, you're telling me that you get applications in the hundreds, and obviously you can't fill all of them.
Right.
So really, how many do you install per season?
Well, this season we've awarded 28 citizens, And that's just kind of based on our budget. When we were kind of speaking before we came in, this season we were not able to get competitive bids for below ground. So we were only able to award the above ground, which is a little bit more expensive. Right. So our numbers were a little bit lower than what they have been in the previous years. So we're hoping for some bids this next year.
Well, we've got to wrap this one up. Now, if someone is interested and want to contact you about the process or this kind of thing, how do they get in touch with you?
Again, you can call the office. We are located over in the housing building on the second floor. It's the Division of Ag and Natural Resources, and my phone number is 918-549-2555. You're welcome to call, and I can send out an application. I can email one. You can come by the office and pick one up, and that goes for submitting them as well. You can drop them off in the office, mail them in, email them in, and you're welcome to fax as well. That's always an option. And our fax number for that is 918-549-2965. So anyone that has questions and wants a storm shelter.
Great, yeah, but it's not an automatic approval.
It is not an automatic approval.
So
we
not a one
right.
Come on.
Yes.
All right. Well, Amy King, thank you so much. We appreciate you making time here for us to fill us in, and who knows, we may come back to you as the season progresses and see how you do.
That would be great. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. We're going to take a short break here, and we'll be back. We have a couple of gentlemen that we have recently installed as our leadership. We did an interview with them. Mvskoke Vision, Mvskoke Radio, and Mvskoke News got together, and we were granted the chance to talk with the two of these gentlemen who now lead our tribe, Mr. Hill and Mr. Beaver. We'll be back with that segment right after this.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be Native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Hear that? That's the sound of Hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on The Brew, 106.3 FM and 1240 AM here in the beautiful heart of downtown Okmulgee Council House, just out the window there. So we're having an enjoyable time so far if the weather gives us a break. Now, last week we were granted some time to talk with the new leadership of our tribe, Mr. David Hill and Del Beaver, about what they've got planned or what they see and what may be challenging them for the beginning of their administration. We will go ahead and share this with you. As I said, we did this in conjunction with Mvskoke Vision, our TV show, and Mvskoke News, the newspaper, and of course, Mvskoke Radio. So stay with us here. Hello, I'm Gary Fife of Mvskoke Media, the radio communications specialist. But today I'm switching roles just a bit to work with our TV crews and our public relations department. We have the opportunity to talk to the newly elected leadership of the Mvskoke Creek Nation, our principal chief, David Hill, and our second chief, Del Beaver. Now, they're new to the office, so we're just going to kind of get an introductory chat with these gentlemen, and we will get them later on, probably put them on the spot a little bit more. But let's find out who these gentlemen are and what they've got in mind for the Mvskoke Creeks. Okay, Principal, Chief, Second Chief, Mr. Beaver, you were sworn in days ago in a rather beautiful and elaborate ceremony. First question, what's it feel like? Is the shock worn off yet? Do you feel like you're kind of settling in?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us. Just really hit yesterday once we came in, but yeah, as you had mentioned, the inauguration I think was real exciting to have, and it's real good turnout. As far as yesterday and today, it's been busy week all day yesterday. Just a little bit of lunch, I think, drunk water, about it. Mm-hmm. But it's been good. Myself and Second Chief had several meetings throughout today and today this morning. Just hit the ground running. All we've been able to do, and great communication with the staff and cabinet. It's been great so far.
Yeah, I just reiterate some of the thoughts of Chief Hill. The first inauguration, I mean, it was everybody that was involved in the inauguration. I mean, it was just first class. I mean, I can't thank enough all the people here at the tribe that had a hand in preparing the inauguration, and the people at the River Spirit Resort. I mean, they were just, there's a reason why, that resort is a top-notch facility, and I have heard nothing but positive feedback about the inauguration. And so I just can't commend our staff enough of the time and effort that they put into the inauguration. And so and it was a good time to showcase our facility also, and so I thought it went really well. It was a long day, but it was a great day though. I mean, it was really a great day. And then we turn around, and I don't think we had much of a rest on Sunday. No. And then today, you talk about hitting the ground running. I mean, it was from 8:30 till about 5:30 yesterday, and then I was getting emails from Chief at 9:30, 9. Yeah, I mean, so but being on council, it kind of prepares you for this. I mean, because being on council, it never stops. So. And being in this position, it never stops either. You just have an office to work out of, So so Chief is right. It's meeting after meeting after meeting, and you might throw an interview in there every now and then. And but it's great. It's great. I mean, this is what we signed up to do, and so it's a good situation.
Well, both of you gentlemen have mentioned the facility, which was gorgeous. It set up just wonderfully. Yeah. Without being too elaborate, it was wonderful for the occasion. Mm-hmm. But I remember in your presentation, Second Chief Beaver, that you mentioned you'd gone from a bingo hall mm-hmm. to this new facility. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to, ask you gentlemen, that would be incredibly symbolic. And for each of you, what would that represent? How do you feel about going from A to B?
Well, I grew up right across the river in Jinx, and so I can remember going to the bingo hall with my mom. She loved to play bingo, and so I would, when the days evenings I'm not doing anything, I would go play bingo with her. And so just to see the development there, I mean, I remember vividly. There's nothing there. Where that QT is down the road, that was a soccer field. I remember coming in out of Jinx on the pedestrian bridge. That was the only way into Jinx at that time. So just being able to see the development and the Creek Nation being a big part of that. I mean, a huge part of that, the development of South Tulsa. I'm just so proud to see of us being a part of that, and really a driving force of that development in the South end of Tulsa. So it's just been something that I've always taken a lot of pride in the tribe of what they've done. And what are the previous administrations, what they've accomplished, and then you just see the next administration build upon that, and so now it's our turn to build upon what the previous administration has done.
I was going to touch on that as well. serving on the council whenever the first River Spirit, during AD's term. That was a great accomplishment, serving that. And also, in the beginning stage of the hotel and casino was Tiger administration. And to see it completed in Floyd's administration, the hotel and the expansion, just being part of those three administrations made as second chief was saying, to see all that come up, the economic development throughout in Tulsa area, being the number one for the last 2 years, it says it all for Creek Nation, and that's why I wanted to at the inauguration to recognize a former chief, Chief Cox, Chief Beaver, Chief Ellis, Chief Floyd, Chief Tiger, and Chief Five. I think they all need to be recognized, but each one has set a foundation for the next previous chief. So it's up to me and second chief Beaver to carry on tradition, to see what we can do to improve what they have left for us to do.
Okay, let's move on to some of the tougher topics that you will be dealing with. I remember when Chief Floyd came into office, he had that huge fiscal crisis. People were losing faith in the government. A real turmoil. You come into office facing huge challenges also. First of all, the governor and his stance on the gaming compacts, and we're waiting on a decision on our sovereignty from the U.S. Supreme Court. Monumental challenges, huge challenges. What are your thoughts on dealing with those?
As far as governor pertaining to the compact, we're going to stay united with the other tribe, and also in the same sense protecting our sovereignty as well. And I will stand behind, which we have our intertribal meeting this week, and I'm pretty sure that will be discussed. I also have a meeting tomorrow with the all tribes, and again, we're going to stay united, and that's the only way we're going to get past this. What's your stance on that?
As far as the gaming compacts, there is no other stance. It's an issue that we've all united behind. We all agree on that they automatically renew, and I'm interested to see how that's going to move forward. Obviously on our part, business as usual. We saw that at the casinos. So, but there's still what I hate to see is that relationship being strained between us and the state. We're not going anywhere. We are part. When they talk about doing what's best for the citizens of Oklahoma, we are citizens of Oklahoma. We're not different from anybody else. So I just hate to see that issue kind of trying to turn one against another. So that to me that's part I hate seeing. Because we're not going anywhere. We are Oklahoma. So that's really the issue that I just really take offense at. But other than that, we are united. The tribes are united in agreement that the compacts renew.
One more question in that vein. Last three governors have had a Native American staff person, and then that got elevated to a secretary, cabinet secretary. But we really never saw anything come out of those positions. As a matter of fact, one of them, the only thing she did was for her own tribe, and then she became a chief there. And then the other two seemed like they were, as the term goes, window dressing on the set. And we saw Ms. Billy recently resigned over these issues. This kind of situation, do you think, sour the relationship between our tribe and the governor's office?
I think to some degree. Miss Billy, I don't think she was utilized like she should have. She did report out to intertribal. She was for the tribe and did what all she could to represent us to the governor. But I don't believe the governor had reached out to her and utilized her on what she should have done and what he did. I think she should have played a big part of that and had more communication with him, to the governor. But I do commend her for what she had to do. She stood up for her rights as being a tribal member herself.
Yeah, I totally agree. Obviously, I think the relationship has soured a little bit, but time heals wounds. All wounds. So it's not too late. It's not. It's just it really comes down to communication, open communication, honest communication, being sincere about what you say and about and doing what you mean. Do what you say you're going to do. And so, and I just, I felt, I don't want to say bad for Miss Billy because I think she did the right thing. I just feel bad that the governor put her in a difficult situation, and I feel that she did what she had to do. So I commend her for that.
Okay, the second part of that question deals with the sovereignty. The case is before the Supreme Court looking at jurisdiction of the Creek Nation, whether or not we have a reservation, Mr. Murphy's case, and then there's another one on there. I forget the gentleman's name.
McGirt.
Yeah, thank you. We're both asking the same question: do we exist as a reservation, quote unquote, or not? So how? And we're waiting on the Supreme Court to at least announce a date.
Right.
So where do we go from here? What do you have any plans?
That's a subject we'll have to dig more into. Most likely I'll get with our attorney generals and the attorneys that are working this case to get more familiar with it, because we basically just kind of let them handle that. But it definitely will affect us. We just have to be prepared.
I understand the Supreme Court bringing in the McGirt case. I'm not real familiar with the McGirt case, but I understand the tie-in to the Murphy case. And if the Supreme Court needs more information, then by all means, that's their right to have more information. And if that's what they need to make a decision, then let's give them all the information they need. And so I understand the magnitude of this decision. And it's obvious considering how long it's taken them to make a decision. Mm-hmm. So and to rehear a case, I don't think that's that's not very that's unusual, I think. But it's the Supreme Court. They got to make a decision sometime, right? So nobody can push them to make a decision when the time frame is. But whatever information they need, then let's give it to them. And if that's what they need, then I'm all for it. But I don't think our stance has changed at all. It's from what I understand. So when we were there the first time, I don't know much has changed from the second time that we'll be there. So and like Chief Hill said, we're keep on getting updated from the AG's office, and we have people in DC that updates us, and so we'll be ready whatever decision comes.
Let's bring the focus back here in Old Mulligan and Mvskoke Creek Nation. The biggest item, of course, every year is the budget. The money that we've got to work with, spend things we're obligated for. And I know you've just settled into the chairs and haven't tackled it to any extent, I should imagine. How are we doing, do you think? Do we got enough of a resource here to work with for any plans you may have, or are there any budgetary challenges on the horizon?
Well, actually, this morning we had our investment committee meeting. I think we're going to review what all we have as far as in our investment. I think there's some other avenues I think we discussed this morning that's going to benefit us. And as far as all the economic development that we have, or MMBE or One Fire, there'd be another avenues that we have to look to see what we can do as far as budget-wise. I did request for the whole budget for the nation again today. Hopefully we'll get that and review what all we have. The carryover from last year, just kind of have to go through each department and see where we're at.
Yes. Second, Chief.
I think that Chief Lloyd has done a wonderful job of keeping us in budget. You know, so he left us in good hands. You know, so as far as budget goes, you know, we're within budget. We can cover our budget. Chief Lowe is very fiscally responsible. So I think it's just up to us to keep being fiscally responsible. And you know, we're not hurting at all. I don't believe. But we just have to be responsible with the resources that we have, and that's what Chief Hill had mentioned, is that what's best for the nation, you know. And so that's what we got to keep in mind at all times, is what is best for the nation, not what's best for somebody that's outside the nation, but what is best for the nation and our citizens. So that's something that we keep in the back of our mind. Actually, not in the back of our mind, but it's at the forefront. You know, what's best for the nation.
This next question deals more, again, with the internal relations between our peoples. We've got 3 tribal towns out there. A couple of them have looked at going their own way. First of all, do you plan to make any outreach to places like Tlaplaco? The one that was looking at its own casino, possibly? How do you see that going?
I was contacted by one of the Mikos at the tribal town, and we'll probably have a meeting coming forth to any discussion that's out there. Just have that relationship at first to meet and greet, so to speak, and we'll just go from there. See how we can work together to make all of us better. You know, all having the relationship with Creek Nation and 3 tribal towns. I think you'll, you know, that. See what we can do to help each other.
You know, Chief Hill has done a great job of establishing those relationships, and that's what I look forward to is meeting with the Mikos and the tribal town leaders, and just establishing a relationship, because I don't know in the past how strong those relationships have been, but they are citizens. They're our citizens. So we have to, you know, and try to help out and see, you know, find some common ground of how we can help each other. And you know, they are federally recognized, but they're still Mvskoke, you know. So yeah, it's important that we establish relationships and establish that line of communication.
Let's move now to a question that's really near and dear to my own heart, and that's freedom of the press. Our crew had pushed to have that established. At one point it was there. We were looking good, felt good. And then we heard some rumblings from National Council, and it got changed and was placed back under administrative rule. Where do we go now? You know, to be quite honest, our staff have felt kind of like we had been under assault for a bit. And I have to admit that Chief Lloyd never really interfered with what we did, except for the money end of it, and Commerce took care of that. But you've made a statement now to Tulsa World about freedom of the press. It was included in the statement you made, and we wanted to get a feel for where you gentlemen think it ought to go, and where do you see freedom of the press fitting into perhaps the Constitution.
Again, I would say, you know, there are several legislation that I sponsored for the freedom of the press, and that's one of the subjects that I do want to communicate with the department. What can we do to make it better? What can we do to work together? And like I said, as far as shouldn't be no interference from any political standpoint, and I'm willing to sit down, and as well as second chief, we have discussed that. What are we going to do? You know, and that's why we will have to communicate with the department. You know, it just won't be our input. It's got to be everyone. What can we do to make this better? Because you know, freedom of press, that's your liberty to speak, regardless what's news is out there, bad or good. You know, you see it on television, newspaper. It's news, and that's another way of communicating with the citizens that live outside of our jurisdiction boundaries, outside of the state. A lot of times that's their only way of knowing what's going on in our government. So that's what I want to improve. communication to citizens here and as well as at large.
Yeah, I think if you go back to our voting record, we've always been in favor of freedom of the press, and definitely wasn't for lack of trying. I mean, it's it was a tug of war for a while, right? So we even tried to make it a constitutional issue, and it didn't pass. So, but you know what? The way I see it now is you got to make the best of the situation that you're presented with, and I think when we sit down and talk about it. Because quite honestly, we just haven't had time to sit down and talk about it yet. We've had sidebar conversations about it, but we hadn't had opportunity to really sit down with Mvskoke Media and in this capacity and talk about the future of Mvskoke Media and what's best for Mvskoke Media. Because who knows best what's best for y'all than the media, right? So I'm not a media person. I don't want to tell y'all what to put in the news, So that's not that's not what I went to school for, right? So that's really the last thing on my mind is editing or anything like that. So I think that's something on the horizon for us is we got to get this worked out and see how within the framework that we're presented with, how can we make the best of the situation.
Let me throw this in situations that I've been aware of and throughout my career, when these kind of head-butting situations come up, there's been a meeting between the people who were concerned and the editorial board. Mm-hmm. They sat down and talked with each other. Now, to this day, we have not seen that kind of thing happen, so would that be a way to go? Would that be something you guys would look at?
Oh, definitely. Mm.
All right, well, let me move on to some of the other ones. Now, the big ones, of course, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, is economic development. We seem to have been making some good choices in the past. Things are moving along. I haven't seen any glaring deficiencies. There may be, here and there, but what kind of things do you gentlemen think are on your horizons now that you're here at the leadership of the Mvskoke Creek Nation? Any projects, anything there?
Not right at the moment. Just kind of, like you said, we're hitting the ground running to make sure we have everything set in place first. But with my background in the oil field industry and as well as the aircraft industry for 30 years, I would like to pursue some of those issues, but also communicating with One Fire Holding Company and as well as MBE. I know that they do a lot of government work, so I like to implement and also utilize our MBE company that we have. So to see where we can go on the government side of it. So there's different opportunities that we have, but actually having the right person in place is what it's going to take. And that's what I want to do. I want to hire the right person to get us there. I'm not going to know all the answers, but I have to rely on the person that I put in there and to get us there.
Yeah. That's what it's all about. You got to get the right people in those positions. But Chief Hill and I, we're just there to, to make sure that our vision is met, and our vision, I think, is everybody's vision. We want to be successful, right? Obviously, last spring we saw the need for diversification in our businesses, but it's all about getting the right people in place, the right leadership, and I think we have to look at kind of the way things are set up, organizationally wise. But I think there's some projects on the horizon that we're going to look at, and I think we're set up right now. I think we're doing very well, and maybe to look at increasing maybe the agribusiness part of the tribe. I think we turned a corner on that, and I think we're doing really well. I've heard some good reports from our cattle operation. So I think in those areas, those are the type of areas you got to support. Once they've turned the corner and they're showing a market improvement, then that's the things. Hey, we really need to start capitalizing on the opportunity we have here. So what else do we need to make sure that we're still improving that area? We're still taking advantage of what we have. So if you look at it across the nation, we got land. So how can we take advantage of all the land that we have? We got highways, interstates, freeways, whatever going through our nation. How can we take advantage of that? So those are things that we have to look at and get the right people in place to make sure that we can take advantage of our opportunities.
The federal government plays such a huge part in our existence, so to speak. The current administration.
Don't give them too much credit, all right?
We have to. My wife used to work for the BIA. Anyway, we were looking at the actions of the current administration, the president, over the past several years, and even before, when he was in the gaming industry, unsuccessfully, by the way. And the relationship is always fluid. It's always changing. Where do you see us going now in relation to the federal government? Do we need to stand back and say, hey, you guys back off, wait a minute, or come on, we've got some ideas that we think will work that we can get together on? Where do we stand with the feds?
Well, that's a big part. You said communicate. So that's one of the first steps first, communicate with them. To see basically where he stands. I mean, don't know what the next election is going to be as far as our government, the president, but that's something I'm going to have to check into. I mean, both of us, we're going to have to work together and just basically put our heads together, see where we need to go from here.
Yep. And I think we've had conversations, not quite about this, but about our sovereignty, and we feel that it's never a good issue to stand back and let other people determine your sovereignty. As a tribe, we need to go ahead. We need to keep pushing our sovereignty every single day. Push our sovereignty. Push it. Because the day will come. When that day comes, when we stop pushing our sovereignty, who else is going to do it? The government's not, right? They're not going to promote our sovereignty. So it's our responsibility to promote our sovereignty and to push our sovereignty. And so that's kind of the conversations we've had about that kind of deals with on the federal government side. And we have great people in place at the federal government level. Our ambassador, lobbyist, Ambassador Jonadab. He does a great job of briefing us on anything that's coming down the pike. We have lobbyists that do a great job, and so we're aware, and just because it's not on front page news doesn't mean we're not doing anything. So we do have people in place.
One of the first stops usually a tribal government will make is with the Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs. Do you gentlemen have any plans for meeting with Tara Sweeney and taking any concerns or new ideas or fears perhaps into that office?
Yes, I was contacted that probably our first step is to go to the Capitol to meet several individuals there, as well as NCAI. We're scheduled to go there next month. And our lobbyists there, as well as ambassadors, going to schedule meetings with us, with several, representatives up there as well. So we'll get to meet. And see where we can go.
Okay. I presume this will be the last general topic area. Is what are you going to do here now? Whenever a new administration comes in. There are changes to be made. Some call it cleaning house. Others say, the gentle sweeping of the carpet, so to speak. What do you have perhaps in mind then for the people, for the employees here who work for the Mvskoke Creek Nation, both in the upper levels and in the lower levels?
Well, I did have a meeting with the cabinet yesterday and today. As I had mentioned in my platform and several, even in my statements, that I want to be equal to everyone. So all the, I know what you mean when new administration come in, basically start with new cabinet members. Well, I will post all the positions. I want to give everyone an opportunity to apply and go through the proper process of being interviewed. And as I mentioned, I want to put the right person in place. Regaining their trust is what I want, and that's the beginning stage of giving each one an opportunity to apply for all the positions that we have. And as far as the employees, I did discuss with HR to try to improve the employee protection. The Eastern Band of Cherokees, I believe, passed a law 2 years ago. Talking to the HR this morning, that's one of the things I want to pursue as well, employee protection. I want employees to come in and enjoy working for Creek Nation, to be proud to work for Creek Nation. But in the same sense, it's our job to protect them as well. I don't want them to have the fear of being fired for no reason. You have to, everything has to be documented, the proper procedures and everything need to be done. But I want us to grow from where we are at, and hopefully we can get there with everyone's help.
I've been with the tribe since 2005, so I've been through different administrations as an employee. So I know what it feels like, when a new administration come in. There's that level of uncertainty that you have, but for the most part, I've never seen sweeping changes, and usually, but it's at the cabinet level that you usually see the changes. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I commend Chief Hill for sticking to his guns and sticking to his campaign promise that he's going to give everybody a fair shot of reapplying for their job, so I think that's fair. But for the most part, I've never seen like whole programs be wiped away. I'm thinking back. I can never remember. I don't remember that. It just hadn't happened. So I think there's people. There's a fear out there, but I think it's unfounded, to be honest with you. So and I know me and Chief Hill, we have the same. We think the same about our employees. We got to protect them. We got to empower them. Employees have to know what their job duties are. We got to be responsible to our employees and make sure they have the tools to be successful in their job. Because if we have an expectation of them, but we don't give them the tools to succeed, then who's at fault? It's us. So.
All right, that was our interview with the newly elected Chief David Hill and second Chief Del Beaver. We've only got a couple minutes here, so we'll try and squeeze in a couple of announcements here. Where am I here? Oh, by the way, the Coweta Health Facility is closed today due to a water main break. So if you have a need out there in Coweta, or you had an appointment, you might want to give them a buzz and see about rearranging that appointment.
All right, the Summer Youth Employment Program applications are now available for Native American youth ages 16 through 21. So if you're interested in getting experience in the workforce, apply now. The applications are being accepted until March 31st.
Okay. Oh, by the way, if you're curious, that was our reporter, Lonnie Hansen, who's been sitting and listening to our interview and decided to accede to my request to help out and break her in on the radio end of it. Anyway, the Mvskoke Creek Nation Volunteer Income Tax Program, VITA, is getting ready to take on some people to help any Omogi County resident who makes under $54,000. And they're looking for volunteers, by the way. Any tribal employee. They need meters and greeters also. So if you're interested, you might want to check in with the Department of Commerce.
And the 7th Annual All Indian Livestock Show is going on January 24th through the 26th at the Mvskoke County Fairgrounds. Make sure to check that out that next weekend.
All right. Thank you, Lonnie. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you all out there for listening to us here on Mvskoke Radio. But You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. But